During his heyday, Frank Sinatra was known as a well-dressed, fast-living, fist-fighting swinger with a top-dog swagger that earned him the nickname Chairman of the Board. He rose to superstardom with the Rat Pack, but old Blue Eyes had humble beginnings. The son of Sicilian immigrants, he was born and bred right here in Hoboken.
Tony, we're in front of Hoboken City Hall. It was here that October 30th, 1947, a crowd of 30,000 people gathered to celebrate 31-year-old Frank Sinatra and his monumental career. He was only 31. Right in front was a fire truck with his proud father driving as Frank went up and down the street with the crowds cheering and waving. Who would have thought that decades later Hoboken would claim that Frank Sinatra was Hoboken's gift to the world? But how did he get here? We're going to walk through Hoboken and find out.
Our first stop had us heading to the site of Sinatra's baptism, because if all had gone as planned, he would never have been known as Frank.
On December 2nd, 1915, Sicilian immigrants Natalie and Antonio Sinatra welcomed their only child, a little boy, into their family. And they came here on Jefferson Street, St. Francis Church, to have him baptized. In the arms of his godfather, Frank Garrick, who, for whatever reason, misunderstood the priest, the boy who was meant to be Albert Sinatra became Frank Albert Sinatra. You know, it's all in the name. I don't know if Albert Sinatra would have been a superstar.
Well, what we do know is that the tenement building where his family first lived no longer exists. It's just an archway with a beaten-up star on the sidewalk below. But if you want to see what Sinatra's early success could buy, we have to head to Hudson Street.
We're here on Hudson Street, the upper class end of Hoboken. And it's here that as a successful big band singer, Frank Sinatra bought his parents a beautiful home. Despite the fact that he prematurely left Demarest High School, some say he dropped out, some say he was thrown out. He knew from a very early age, after hearing Bing Crosby perform, that he wanted to be a singer. And that was his mission, and his mother helped it happen. She hooked him up with a group called the Hoboken Four, and the Hoboken Four went off to win Major Beau's Amateur Hour, which gave them a 6-month contract touring the country and appearing on the radio. When that gig ended, Mom got him a job as a singing waiter, and the right people heard him. And in 1939, Frank Maine asked him to join the band. 7 months later, Tommy Dorsey said, "Come with me." Now, Dorsey required 1/3 of Frank Sinatra's lifetime earnings plus 10% additional for his management.
Wow.
43% off the top before Frank made a penny. Well, this may have been what got him started, but Frank was on the rise. And as the money started rolling in, he wanted control over his own finances. Some will say that he offered Dorsey $60,000 to get out of the contract, which is an awful lot of money. Others say that Frank's mobbed-up friend, Willie Moretti, paid Dorsey a call at Dorsey's California home. End the conversation. Dorsey took $1, contract went away.
But before all of the success, there was Sinatra's very first public performance right here in Hoboken.
Tony, according to local legend, it was here at St. Anne's that Frank Sinatra sang for the public for the very first time. We're not exactly sure the date, and there are no recordings of it, but we do know that it was at the Ravioli Supper, a fundraiser for the church. Everything comes full circle. About a half century later, in 1983, Frank Sinatra introduces President Ronald Reagan as the guest of honor for St. Anne's feast day.
But if you think Sinatra was born a Republican, think again. In 1944, he was invited to meet President Roosevelt in the White House and agreed to be part of the Democratic voter registration drives. That same year, he donated $50,000 to the party, and he campaigned for President Truman and for President John F. Kennedy. His political alliance began to shift when Kennedy distanced himself from Sinatra, who had alleged ties to organized crime. Sinatra was a driving force behind the civil rights movement. He was vehemently opposed to racial segregation. He spoke at schools, he played a benefit concert for Martin Luther King Jr. at Carnegie Hall, and he is credited with helping to desegregate Nevada hotels and casinos in the 60s. In fact, you could say the Rat Pack was one of the first racially diverse acts to make it to the big time. Sinatra was certainly ahead of his time.